everybody to this week's webinar. I'm Emma Maslen, I'm the CEO of inspir'em. As we've mentioned before, the webinars that we're running are to accompany our MEDDIC Foundations course, and we're talking about a number of different subjects. In this particular series, we're talking about the implementation of MEDDIC and MEDDPICC and other qualification methodologies within sales. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by David Meyer from Clarify. So what we'll do is we're going to do a bit of an introduction to David, and then we'll also get into a bit of Q&A and talk about some of the subjects that we talked about on this week's newsletter that's come out from inspir'em. And then we can take some of your questions as well. So if you'd like to ask a question, please feel free to put something into the Q&A tab in Zoom. But we'll kick off with saying hi to David, and welcome, David. Lovely to have you on our webinar.
Hi, Em. Pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Great. Lovely to have you. So it'd be great just to kick off for those out there that haven't heard of Clarify, just a little bit about yourself and background to the business.
Sure, no problem. So David Meyer, one of the co-founders of Clarify. I then, like in a lot of smaller businesses, I wear a number of different hats. So I'd be responsible for all of Clarify's own growth activities in a role as CRO. But I also look after our sales development practice, which will make more sense when I explain what we do. What we do is help technology organizations, technology services organizations as well, who have high value, complex offerings that they're taking to market, to coordinate effectively across their sales development and marketing teams to drive a different kind of opportunities. So typically much bigger opportunities where there are complex kind of buying centers that you're having to navigate, and where they're very often trying to drive a difference in what they're doing. It's not just about how do we do it more efficiently or drive more scale. It's very often how do they sell a different kind of solution to the ones they've been selling before, or engage with a different persona, something like that. And so we either help them by providing advice, guidance, training and other support in how they go about doing that themselves, or a big part of the business is doing parts of that for them as a managed service.
Great. No, that's great to hear. And we've obviously been working together for a long time, and I suppose know quite a lot about the business. And one of the things that sort of strikes me about Clarify, which sort of plays into some of the things that we've been talking about over the last few weeks, is about you are great at hiring great talent and bringing those up through the organization. And obviously the enablement programs that you run and the sort of academy that you run internally is obviously world-class. It has to be because of the types of services that you're delivering. So the first question I sort of had for you is, how do you create those great sales enablement programs and make things stick? Because I'm sure you're coming up with new ideas all the time. Obviously, AI is now a big thing as well. But, how do you ensure that you get really good quality enablement across the whole team? Keep that going.
Sure. So I think you're absolutely right in saying this whole process is absolutely core to what we do. So we have to stay on the front of it. I think a lot of what changes actually is the channels that people are using to communicate with, and some of the tactics therefore that you bring. And then, as you say, once you're figuring those out, all those innovations and understanding what works best, you've then got to find a way to get the whole organization to understand and adopt those. We use a combination of enablement teams. So we've got a team of people in the Sales Academy who are delivering those activities internally and also to customers. But we then have to embed that in process, in systems, so that they're constantly being relearned. So we use tools like Exonify to do refresh, recap of kind of knowledge-based activities. We've got obviously managers are using coaching and so on to reinforce the skills components of it. And then we've got systems that are baking in effectively a demand for you have to have done these in this way in order to if you like, exit a part of the process or move something on to the next stage.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is quite interesting because of the types of services that you're selling as well. We talk to a lot of sales leaders about how they embed enablement, and you always get a little bit of the sort of 80-20 rule. But actually, I suppose in your business, you sort of can't afford to have people that are sort of outside of the process. Almost everybody has to live and breathe it. So what's the balance there in terms of some of the coaching that you're doing, but also you said about systemizing some of the output? Just maybe your thoughts on what is that balance between sort of sales hygiene, hitting people with the you've got to get this stuff done, versus the come on the journey with us, please.
Yeah, I think I talked a bit about making sure the outcome is there, because I'm a passionate believer that different people are different, and so they might get to the outcome in a different way. And the hygiene is there to make sure that you're getting to the right kind of outcome. But like, nobody likes admin for admin's sake, and so how do you make sure that those admin type tasks are reinforcing behaviors for those individuals so they perform at a higher level, they're succeeding, it's worth it for them. I think you're absolutely right in saying we have to turn up in the right way. If our sales organization didn't represent all of the values and the way that we work in the right way, we're dead in the water before we start. So we have to make sure, and those guys are under the spotlight more so than the rest of the team, I would argue, in that they're having to turn up and drive that whole sales engagement, whole sales process, and all the marketing that we do has to line up and work in the right way right from day dot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so even more pressure in the system to make sure that everybody's adopting. That's great.
And sorry, there is one other component, which is we're selling to sales and marketing leaders. So we're talking to people who know exactly what they're looking for and know what they like and what they don't like. And so we have to, there's pressure at every end of that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, we had the same situation almost, because we find ourselves in a situation where, if we're not executing a perfect sales cycle, we're selling the perfect sales cycle. So then that becomes a real problem. So absolutely, I feel your pain. I absolutely feel your pain there. This week's newsletter that we brought out, we were talking specifically about putting MEDDIC, MEDDPICC into consultancy businesses. And so typically in a sort of sales process that you would go through for a product sale, you do some discovery, new business meeting. You would also do some sort of demo, put together a business case, do a proof of value, and then look to close out the opportunity. Genevieve Martin, who works with us, she'd worked with a lot of big services companies previously, and we specifically wrote a blog that came out this week talking about how things are slightly different for consultancy businesses. And just wanted to get your view on that piece around demo, about how do you convey your expertise and your credibility when often you can't necessarily show the thing that you're going to be delivering because it's a consultancy gig, it's a services gig. So just to get your thoughts there.
Yeah, I guess my view on it is that the fundamentals are the same. So the qualification, we use, actually we've made our own flavor of MEDDPICC, but the principles are exactly the same. And I don't see there being a difference in the way that we apply that fundamentally to the way that you would for a product or a service, a solution. From a services standpoint, the demo piece is you have to bring the process to life. So what are the frameworks that you're going to use what are the supporting principles, if you like, that support the way the service is going to be delivered, the reporting, all the other pieces that sit around that, and the people are a massive part of it. If you can expose the customer to the people they're going to be working with, and those people are high quality and going to do all the right kinds of things, ask the right questions in that sales process for you, that does the same job that a really great product demo does. It gives the customer a sense of what it's going to be like to be working with this once they start, and allows them to recognize where the differences are as compared to perhaps others that they might be talking to, or other things that they're considering as a way to solve their problem.
Yeah, no, that's great. And just on that though, because a couple of businesses that I coach, we were talking about this week actually around sort of services businesses. There is a danger there though, isn't there, where you're extracting delivery people from the business to then be part of the sales cycle. So you're taking them away from capacity in the business in terms of delivery, sort of into the sales cycle, which often, if you're not incentivizing people to do that, then people are reluctant anyway. But how do you balance that between delivering work that's already committed work and then having that expertise as part of the sales cycle? Or how do you police it, maybe even?
Okay, so there's a couple of different pieces in there. So I think a part of it is to try and always maintain a degree of capacity, a bit of bench that allows you to have, and that bench isn't necessarily individuals, it's capacity in the individuals to be able to flex their time and skills and provide them to the sales process. There's probably an element of it that's a bit unique to us because our services are all about sales and marketing. everybody's desperate to show off their skills, and so they want to be involved in that part of the process. And in fact, there's a big kudos to being asked to be involved in that. So I think that helps enormously for us, but might not be the case for every other services organization. And then I think probably a lot of it is about the culture. The culture is recognizing that winning is a deal or growing a customer is a team sport, and that it's really important that everybody shares in that success. And so I think that reinforces some of the positive behaviors in being involved in it. But there are still components that are super critical around it. You have to coach people on what the expectations are. They missed the first part of the sales process. So let's make sure they really understand where we are, who the stakeholders are that we're dealing with, what they care about, what they're not going to care about, and what therefore is the expectations around what they need to bring. But at the same time, give people enough flexibility that they can ask questions. They could bring some information or an asset that wasn't necessarily what was kind of briefed in at the front end, because that's how we turn up. That's how we work with our customers, is whatever's going to fix the problem, rather than a kind of absolutely formulaic do A, then B, then C.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's great. It's great advice there. And I think it was an interesting point you made there about the kudos. Like you say, some organizations, the delivery people are less interested in the kudos. Obviously, in your particular situation, you're dealing with sales and marketing, so they're a bit more interested in doing that. So that's good. Sometimes there's a bit of reluctance because of the type of persona. I suppose that brings us back full circle to thinking about things like MEDDIC, MEDDPICC, and qualification, because a big part of that is you've got to be really sure that when you're introducing delivery people in, taking them out of the system, essentially, that you've qualified that and qualifying that opportunity. So maybe just some thoughts on how you're thinking about qualification as part of your business.
Yeah, so again, I think we're lucky in the sense that it's foundational to everything that we do, and so people understand probably more so than they might in another organization why it's. I mean, to the point where it's codified in our product. Our product, if you like, or the output of what we're doing is communicating a new opportunity to a customer and handing that over. And in there, you've got all of the MEDDIC or MEDDPICC kind of criteria all captured in there. So we're lucky, I guess, in the sense that that's all there. How we communicate that to others and make sure that they adopt and follow it is. Sorry, I've lost the plot on the question and I wandered off.
No, that's fine. I was just thinking about that sort of qualification piece, about if you're thinking about taking capacity out of people delivering things and sort of ratcheting up the numbers in that sort of respect, making sure that it's not wasted time just for those people.
Yeah, but I think for them, it's the qualification at the front end to make sure that they're going to be using their time effectively. As I say, we've kind of already got it into our process, so it could not happen unless we were at a particular stage. We've got weightings against it, etc. But also there's an acceptance by everybody. Again, we're lucky; they're all in sales and marketing. There's an acceptance or a realization that you don't close everything. So I think we're again lucky in the sense that people understand that sometimes they're putting energy and effort towards something that they won't ultimately work on. The only other add I would put in is that they, if you can bake it in as part of the onboarding process rather than just a sales process, if the things that you're asking, the questions that you're capturing through those earlier stages become part of the work product, if you like, what you're doing further down the line, and that's all very valuable as well. They don't feel like they stepped in and stepped out. They stepped in at a point in the process and they're going to come back to it at some point.
And something we talk about quite a lot on our on the training that we provide and some of the consultancy engagements is that it's okay to not win everything, because sometimes by getting the team members involved, you have a different perspective. It's not business that you necessarily want to win. So just getting a different view of things is often useful as well.
100%. Lose fast and move on is a benefit for your team as a whole, delivery and sales team, and it's the right thing for the prospect. If we're not the right answer, then better that we do our very best to point them in the right direction, but we step away.
Okay, great. So if anybody's got any questions, if you want to pop them in the Q&A, we'll get to those in a moment. A couple of other just quick points before we sort of get to the Q&A. so we talked about, you've got this academy, you're engineering these great enablement programs, you're having to live and breathe that. What advice or top tips would you give to leaders that are thinking about sustainable enablement programs and ensuring that they've got that constant development going on with their teams so that they can grow?
I think my number one top tip would be that the leaders have to play an active part in it. And so we've talked today about it's not just about knowledge transfer, it's about skill transfer, it's about systems and processes that embed and ensure those things are happening. So the leader has to play an absolutely critical part in designing all of that, but they also have to lead by example in adopting those processes themselves, where they are exposed to it, that they are leading from the front in that sense, and that they're making sure that that those skills and so on are reinforced. I think what I've seen in other customer scenarios is, so where we're working with an organization who put some training in at some point in the background, is that then the leadership stepped away from it. They assumed that that was it. A 2-day training course was going to fix all their problems, and they didn't invest the time in reinforcing those behaviors and making sure that they turned up in the right places. If you've got a qualification framework and you're not using it in your forecast in some way, then you're going to allow that to atrophy over time.
Yeah. And again, we often talk to, really great salespeople who say that actually they need that constant refresh because, we all get a little snow blindness when we're like in the motion and we're dealing with other humans and we're not thinking necessarily about where all of our risks are, all of our blind spots are. So actually just having a little bit of a refresh, on a quarterly basis or whatever the rhythm is, will just help everybody just to take a new perspective, learn something different from each other and just keep the lifeblood going, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So I got a couple of questions in the chat we'll go to. So there's a question in the chat. This is about how do you manage tasks within a CRM. I wonder if there's a deeper question in there, which is around actually what's the balance between putting things within the CRM and almost systemizing everything again versus this sort of inspiring people to be different. Have you got any thoughts there?
So I do. I think over the life cycle of somebody's sales career, what they need is changing as well. So, or from the point where you first give them these new ideas around, for them perhaps, around qualification criteria and what those look like and how you want them to work, you're going to have to make sure there's quite strong adherence at the start of that. So if I look at our new AEs coming into role, there's quite a strong expectation around they are going to fill in a closed plan. They're going to go through the detail of MEDDPICC and quite a lot of, there's a lot of work involved in doing that. But a big part of the reason for that is so that they're understanding it, they're learning, it's embedding that knowledge and the way of thinking in what they're doing. Once you're further into your career, we're not necessarily asking them to do a closed plan for every deal, but we're asking them to do it for the ones that are most critical, where they're stuck. It becomes a way out of a situation. Oh, this deal's lost momentum. What are we going to do? Well, go back and do a deal review and look at what you know. Oh, yeah, do you know what? I've missed this piece and that piece. And it's effectively, the way that we've structured it, it effectively does a lot of the coaching for the individual so that they're not having to, it reduces the workload on the manager day to day because they're kind of coaching themselves to an extent. And then it's back to the 80-20. They're able to get to 80. And the 20% is what the manager then is bringing or other peers are bringing to, well, have you thought about this? What about that? So I think it's trying to avoid the question about how do you get people to do tasks. I think it's got to be right-sized for what that individual needs, what's going to be helping them to be successful. If they're going to be successful, we're going to be successful as a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's something that we talk to as well, which is, these templates and frameworks that are out there. The idea is this is a safety net. This is something that's helping you think, actually, I am stuck. I'm not sure where I go. Well, let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to first principles. What do I know? And the best possible situation is you've got a list of actions of what you're going to go and do and go and find out because we can't possibly know everything. So.
Yeah.
Final question that we've got in the chat, which is, what's the biggest change that you've seen in the past 20 years? Oh, this is going to be a good one, David. And when it comes to the approach of outbound opportunity lead generation, I suppose this is going to go down the road of, are we cold calling people anymore? So what's the biggest change, and how are the channels to reach prospects changing? How do you make sure you stay top of the trend? So let's start with what's changing in the outbounding at the moment.
So I think in their question, they've probably indicated the thing that went straight to the top of my head, which is number of channels has changed dramatically. So if I go back to the beginning of my career, 24 years ago, 25 years ago, I had the phone, we had email, but email was this new thing that we were trying to see whether people would respond to it or not. And that was it, basically. And you know, if I think back to research I was doing on accounts was in the Financial Times, the physical copy that you had to fight to get hold of the companies and market section before somebody else got it. So it was very different from that standpoint. So I think where we are now, there are a lot more channels to engage people through. I think the people who talk about the phone being dead aren't thinking carefully enough about how you use the phone to get to people. It is a multi-channel approach to reach a senior stakeholder, and what I think has also changed is there's just a lot more noise. So if you're trying to get hold of a senior exec in a large bank or a large retailer or whatever it might be, they are being bombarded on all of the channels by lots of people. If you're able to make a good connection across different channels, stand out through the quality of the research that you've done and the thinking that you've put behind them as a person, the role that they're in, the organization they sit in, and the context that's going on around them, you still stand out. There's still most of the activity that is going into people. If you look at your own inbox, it's probably a good indicator. It's pretty lazy. It's pretty brute force, kind of, if I fire enough mud at the wall, hopefully some of it will stick. And so I think there's still huge space for people doing smart things to stand out.
Yeah. And we very much teach that, you know, before you're outbounding to anybody, you should do a bit of research in the beginning, and obviously identified pain and metrics would be a good choice. I had somebody, it did make me laugh, yesterday lunchtime, was calling me to sell me sales training, which I was delighted with. If they'd only looked at our website, which would have been fantastic.
If I had £1 for every email I get per week offering to help build my pipeline, I would be making £10-15 a week. Easy.
Yeah. Brilliant. Absolutely ridiculous. So the second part of the question was really, so how are you staying on top of those trends around the channels changing? So, you know, how do you stay on top of that? What do you read?
So I think there's a lot of good stuff out there. So our target audience are technology organizations. So I spend a lot of time reading what our target audience is reading. So Tech Market View and things like that, which give you a sense of what's going on in the market today. I'm very interested in what's going on from a sales and marketing standpoint, but also cutting edge of tech. And then that also ties back into where I think we're going next on the channel piece, which is I was at SaaStr couple of days this week, and there was a lot of talk about AI is going to revolutionize the world. I think it will revolutionize the world, but I don't agree with what a lot of people are saying, which is it's going to replace salespeople. I think salespeople are still the last community, and marketing are the last communities that are going to be replaced because of the level of creativity that they have to bring. And I think human beings are really smart. I can already tell the difference between the emails that I get, junk emails that I get that had no AI in them, and the ones that had a bit of AI in them. And they're still not humans. They're still nowhere close to being able to create that interaction. And I think the bit that a lot of people are missing is that prospects as human beings will also change their behavior. So if I want to be dealing with human beings, I'm going to find a way to connect with people who I know are human beings because they're on a video call or they're at a physical event or whatever. So you heard it here first. I think there's going to be more physical events, more in-person stuff, more things that are harder for an AI to fake, partly because prospects are going to migrate for high-value, complex solutions. If it's a transaction, I use Amazon just as much as anybody else does. AI will allow me to buy more stuff off Amazon than I do already, and that's all very well and good. But it's the transactional stuff. It's low value. I understand it, or I'm prepared to take a risk on it.
Yep. Well, and also, like you mentioned earlier, I mean, you're in a services business where people are our credibility. We talk about this a lot sort of within the sales cycle. You know, it's really important how the salespeople represent themselves, how the executives represent themselves, the relationships that they have with their customers, the customer success team and how they have relationships with the customers, the service that's provided. And like you say, while some of those things can be automated, the relationship piece is still really important, particularly if you're buying stuff that's critical to your business and is going to make is going to move the needle for you.
100%. I mean, one of the biggest drivers for why people buy high value enterprise class kind of solution is it's going to help them in their career. It's going to help promote them. That is a relationship exercise in building the trust that says, I'm going to help progress your career in the right direction. And yeah, people buy from people, they buy emotionally, all those good things. So yeah, I think we've got a long way to go before we're all replaced.
Yeah. Oh, well, we're going to have to work for a little bit longer then. So there's a sad story for a Friday afternoon for sure. Amazing. Well, it's been great to have you on here, David. Thanks very much. Thanks for the partnership that we have and also for the great insights today. So thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. So that's all we've got time for today. So just a quick view on what we've got coming up over the next couple of weeks. So we have got the lovely Rizan Flenner who's going to be joining us from I See It in 2 weeks' time. The next blog in the series that's coming out is talking about MEDDIC and MEDDPICC in the ecosystem, specifically around marketing. But what we're going to be talking with Rizan about is actually how do you get visibility across your whole organization and particularly using your CRM to better effect essentially. Then the following webinar that we're going to be talking around is we're going to be talking to one of Salesforce's partner managers about the importance of using MEDDIC, MEDDPICC or other qualification methodologies in the channel. So that will be the final one of the series. So if you need anything from us, then please feel free to drop us a line, but we'll see you on the next webinar.